Hey guys, Malcolm here. I just saw the pairings for tonight. This is my sixth game of the US Open Chess Championships, and I'm playing black against Anand Gupta, who's rated 1816. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit discouraged by the fact that my opponent is rated so high. I thought that given that I lost yesterday, I was going to be able to play somebody who's a little bit lower rated. That is obviously not the case. I guess this is what I get for not converting on my chances yesterday. So we'll have to see how this goes. Luckily, everybody else that's rated near me also has to play somebody rated 17 or 1800, so I should have as good a chance as anybody to win and stay in the running for that prize money. But we'll have to see how it goes. I'm feeling a little bit discouraged. The nice thing is that this takes some of the pressure off. I thought I was going to have to play black against somebody my own rating, perhaps, this round, and it's difficult to win with black, especially given some of the openings that I play, which are relatively solid. It is beneficial that if I'm going to be playing black, I might as well be playing somebody higher rated, because that means that if I'm going to play somebody lower rated next round, at least I get to play white again, so I can attack and have good chances. So we'll see how this goes. I'm excited. I will see you guys after the round. Yeah, I'm just gonna try and keep my spirits up. See you guys later. Bye. All right, guys, done with the round. I was playing Anand Gupta, who's rated 1816, I think, 1819, something like that. And we played an Nimzo Indian, and it was a super duper tactical game. We're going to look at it in a second. And my opponent played a lot of only moves for a while, and then it got to a point where I did not play an only move, and that was all she wrote. Let's take a look at the game, and then we can talk about feelings afterwards. All right, so we're black here. Our opponent plays d4, and we respond with knight f6. So we're getting ready for our Nimzo Indian. Our opponent plays c4, and I play e6. Our opponent plays knight c3, and we play bishop b4, the Nimzo Indian. Normal, our opponent plays queen c2, the classical, and we play c5, which is fine. Apparently there are better lines here. My opponent said that he likes playing against this because he gets a lot of play with a3. I considered playing something like a5 in order to stop b4 from coming, but I was worried about giving this knight this square. So that's actually check. So if we play a5 here, what does it give us? It's one of the top three lines, apparently. It's fine, but I think the weakening here long term is why it gives white a fairly significant advantage. Fair enough. So a3 is best. We play knight c6, which is fine. Apparently you're supposed to break with d5 relatively early. We're okay with playing with an isolated queen's pawn. And that probably would have been preferable to how the game went. Now we know. Our opponent plays b4, and we play bishop e7, which is the best move. We just want to get out of the way. We're defending our knight against tactics along the long diagonal. Our opponent plays knight f3. We play b6. They play bishop b2. We play bishop b7. e3. Castles. So at this point, our opponent has some space on the queen side, but their king is a little bit awkwardly placed in the middle. So I should be looking for ways to break open the center, but I think right now I don't really have the option to do that yet, because my opponent plays bishop d3, and now I have to worry about this threat. So I play h6 to prevent that. My opponent plays h4. And this is apparently not a blunder, but it's not the best move. Instead, they should just move their rook along this open file and play against the backwards d7 pawn that I have. But my opponent went for all-out attack, and we're going to see what he was thinking in a second. So I played d5, and this is a mistake. If I'd played d5 earlier, it would have been all right. But at this point, it's going to become awkward for me. My queen isn't exactly trapped, especially given that my opponent played rook h3. It's a missed win for him. If he plays rook here, then my queen has to go to the h file, and then things are bad, right? We go here and here, and like, what am I supposed to be doing here? Like, this is the only move for your queen, but like, what are you doing here, queen? So my opponent plays rook h3, and we're going to see why he does that in a second. My opponent suggested that perhaps playing bishop d6 would be useful, but then when this comes, it comes with an extra tempo, because when my queen moves, my bishop is still hanging. So for example, rather than playing rook ac8, if I play here, this is bad because this comes, my queen has to move because this check is coming, and even still this check is coming, I move, and my opponent can take here, and they're just totally winning. So I'm glad that I did not play bishop d6. I played rook ac8, and there are actually a ton of tactics here. So for example, one of the lines that I was looking at that did not come to pass is rook d1. And we're going to see, this is apparently the best move. But one of the things that I'm like constantly acutely aware of is this knight can sacrifice here, and the reason is that it opens up an attack on the queen. So you can't take back with the pawn, right? You can't do this because you lose your queen, and that's not enough compensation. You can see black's up 9.5 here. And if I take here and you move your bishop somewhere, now you're attacking my queen and I'm attacking your queen, but this comes with check. So black is still totally dominating here. Sorry, shouldn't move the bishop. If the queen moves, for example, then I can take here, and even though I've put myself in a pin, you can see that I'm still in a good spot. This comes with check, the king has to move, and now can I take here? I don't know what the line is, but the point is that like that this knight sacrifice here, now that the rook is on the c file, is always useful because this queen has to move. My opponent plays rook g3, and the reason he wants to do that is that he's going to go to windmill. So, for example, let's say I play some nothing move like a5, which is a move that I was looking at playing. It's bad for a variety of reasons. Check, here, mate, right? So I played the only move in this position, which I was proud of because it took me a long time to come up with it, and that is e5. If my opponent takes, I can just take, and this should be good for black. You can see up 6.5, right? Bishop can't take because I take here. They can't do anything there. One of the things that I also have is if I can ever protect myself from this bishop and rook battery, this will come with a fork. Although that being said, it doesn't work right now because the queen and bishop are a battery, so I can't take there because I lose my queen. My opponent plays queen c7, which is a fine move. Apparently bishop h7 check is the best, although like who's gonna play that? And in particular, that seems dumb because like I played king h8 anyways. I'm not exactly sure why this is a mistake, but it becomes apparent in just a moment. Like you'll see. So my opponent plays bishop c4, which apparently is not the best move, and I should move my queen back to d8. Though again, like we're ending up in really awkward territory there. And the reason is that my opponent can play b5. Now, if I go here, then bad things happen, and let's try and remember what I was calculating here. Computer, help me out. Aha, this comes with the tempo on my queen. I have to move somewhere to defend this threat, and that's giving away my queen, and things are bad. Even if this comes, I don't know where my queen can go that it's useful, right? Like, I guess it says I should take here. Yeah, it says I should take here, takes, and like, how is this a good line for me? Like, I'm down a queen for 2 pieces. Apparently I have some play, but this is not the kind of position that I'm comfortable playing in at all. So I play knight d4, which is apparently bad. Apparently I should just play f6. That's somehow less losing, just letting my opponent get the knight for free. My opponent takes with the pawn. I take with the bishop, and what I expected was my opponent to just take with the pawn here, or the rook. It doesn't even matter, right? Either one, my opponent's up 5. Okay. Apparently one is better than the other, but my opponent's up a lot of material, like, should be fine. But my opponent takes with the pawn, and then allows me to trade queens, which is not the best. Apparently I should move my queen, and then my opponent can take this bishop, and I'm down a piece. Again, I don't exactly know how that's fine, but okay. But we trade here, and I take this bishop, which is apparently worse. Again, apparently I should take here, and if here, then at least I can get my rook into the game. It's an even number of pawns, so being down a bishop, if I could trade everything, it would be fine. But I did not do that. I played bishop takes, because I saw that material is somewhat even here, right? I move my rook to g8, reason being that this is still a threat. But being down this pawn matters a lot, because I don't have an easy way to scoop it up. So my opponent plays rook d1. I'm really surprised that my opponent did not play rook c1. And the reason for that is I have to move my bishop, takes, and this position is bad because at best this check happens, but probably more likely this windmill is coming, right? So now wherever the rook moves, it's going to be check from the bishop, unless I do something like this, I guess, but that's dumb because the bishop just takes in the same thread as there. And so my opponent can go back and forth as much as they want to attack this king. But instead my opponent played rook d1, which gives me a little bit of life in the position. I play rook ec8. This is apparently wrong. Apparently I should play f6 to protect against this threat. I was worried if I did that, what happens if here? And apparently this is slightly better for black. Takes, and then here, I guess. And material is totally equal. So apparently I was hallucinating that. Was there something else that I was worried about here? No, I think I just missed it. So I played rook ce8, forcing him to defend, right? So he defends, rook d7. I play bishop takes pawn. Might as well attack the rook. My opponent plays rook takes pawn. I saw all this. f6, which apparently should have come earlier, but fine. My opponent attacks the bishop and skewers the pawn. I move my bishop, attacking the rook. My opponent takes the pawn. And I play what I thought was going to be my saving grace, rook gf8. And the reason is my opponent can't take because of this pin. So at least I can move my rook to f7. That apparently doesn't matter, especially because now that my opponent has been able to gain a tempo here, my opponent can defend with the bishop. So at best, I'm losing an exchange. So I play g4 because I have to get my king in somehow. I thought about playing here, but my opponent can lock me into a tomb, and that seems bad. And we take and take. Apparently I should take with the f-pawn so that the rook has some play. That makes some sense in retrospect, but what can you do? My opponent plays rook d7. I play king g7. My opponent plays king d2, and here's where you can tell that I was hallucinating. I was thinking, I have to get this bishop somewhere into play. My bishop's like kind of trapped. Now, admittedly, the best move here, I think, is something like bishop f1. attacking this pawn. If this moves, then at least I can get on this diagonal, and I can get back into the game a little bit, or get over here and attack this rook. But I just totally missed the fact that this was taken by the rook. And from this point, it's a relatively quick loss, right? We end up trading pieces. My opponent locks it up. I try and play for stalemate. And then checkmate comes. So hard to really say too much about that game. I know that this recap was a little bit shorter than normal, but this game just sort of fell out of my depth. There were so many tactics, and my opponent there was one move that my opponent spent, I think, a legitimate half an hour on. My opponent spent a very long time, which was to their benefit. But yeah, it was a very complicated position where I was defending, and my opponent was just trying to decide how to attack. I'm proud of the fact that I was able to generate some chances for myself in the mid game. There were some tactics for me if my opponent played inaccurately, but I nonetheless need to study this opening more if I'm going to be successful. So I'm going to do that. Again, I have to wait until tomorrow to see how my unrated opponents did to see how that affects my rating. We should expect it to continue to drop, but we've already gained 80 rating points, something like that. So it's hard to call this tournament a failure. And I ran into George again after his game, and he showed me a cool tactic from his game a while ago. He was beating a 2100 player and then lost. And then he showed me his game from tonight, where he sort of slowly but surely was outplayed because he played passively as white. Nonetheless, it's been a pleasant experience. Tomorrow might be my last game. I'll know after I play my game tomorrow whether or not I have any shot of being in the prize money for this tournament. I still have hope, but losing does not put me in a great position here. So we'll see. Anyways, I'll be back in the morning to tell you guys what my new ratings are, and thank goodness I have tomorrow off, so I can finally chill and not worry about the grind as much. Anyway, see you in the morning. Hey guys, it's morning. The scores from last night have been updated. Peyton LaRosa, our opponent from game 2, lost to a 17-18, so he's down to 14-03. Harrison Quinn won against a 12-72, so he's up to 13-22. So that means that with our loss to an 18-16 last night, we're actually only down 2 points to 13-50, so we've gained 104 rating points so far. So if we have a good game tonight, then we can end the entire tournament on a positive note, and that would be really nice. Oh, one more thing about the standings and whether or not I'm going to be in the running for prize money. It looks like there are 5 people with 3.5 out of 7, and there are 12 people with 3 out of 7. I have 2.5 out of 7 so far, so it seems unlikely. If we get a win today, maybe we have a shot. We'll double check the standings after that. But it's seeming like tomorrow's going to be my last game. That's the way the cookie crumbles. It was nice to have had a shot. And we may still have a shot. If we get 2 wins in a row, we definitely could be up there. I'll let you guys know how it goes. All right. See you later.